for being here and making your journey all the way here to De Anza College to learn how to be a steward of your community and your planet. Everyone present here today is here to learn from experts in climate policy, in transit, in environmental literacy, and more. We're here to network with students and adults to seek paths for green careers and to share solutions and strategies from one another about effective climate action.
We're grateful for all of your support, and we look forward to collaborating on key stakeholder actions for high impact and to provide opportunities for youth to engage. You will hear opening remarks from SVYCA student leaders and our executive director, and the rest of the day you will hear from keynote panels, collaborate with other youth and policymakers in strategy discussions, and be able to brainstorm goals and ideas with your peers and elected officials.
So what brought us here in this room on random Saturday morning where you can literally be anywhere else? Like, why are you here? Why are we all here? Youth, young adults, community allies, government officials, problem solvers, climate champions, and ambitious students. I believe everyone has their reasons, and I know mine. Though I cannot guess your answers, one thing I am certain of is that the environment, climate, and our home have been in our thoughts a lot recently. Perhaps we all have been disturbed and startled by the ongoing climate change that blurred our visions for the future. By the time I was creating this presentation 2 weeks ago, there were 880 fires burning in Canada, and 580 of them were out of control. The smoke from the wildfires put 70 million US residents under air quality alert. Last year, in 2022, California suffered from the worst drought in 1,200 years this early March. However, California's atmospheric river brought a bomb cyclone that forced many highways to close, seized public transit in impacted counties, and put the lives of millions in danger and without power. Winds reached hurricane level speed and affected 35 million people, with the San Francisco Bay Area facing the most severe weather. Outside of the United States, climate change amplified India's monsoon season when intense flooding left at least 100 dead, reported by the Washington Post. High temperatures are causing death and bring misery to millions of people across the globe. They're also creating challenges to corporate workforces, infrastructure, and supply chains. We members of the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action are here because we're tired of simply accepting the status quo, and we're determined to be part of the solutions as time is running out to have a livable planet for all. Thank you.
We can see that schools have immense potential for leading the way in reducing our environmental impact and tackling the climate crisis as a whole. So we really do need to be talking about how we can leverage schools' potential for preparing students to be environmental stewards of our communities and our environment. So this is our starting point. Some students in FEHSD do have the opportunity to learn about climate change, but only in certain classes like AP Environmental Science, so it's not a consistent experience for all students. We have a lot of environmental clubs, organizations, passionate students and teachers, but no coordinated efforts throughout the whole district. And we do have a lot of efforts to electrify our buildings and reduce our environmental impact, but we need long-term district-wide goals to keep ourselves accountable.
We were thinking, and I'll just say one program that was working for our district is the Green Ribbon School Program. It is a state program, and it's also a federal program, but we're kind of in the state, and so we decided as a district last year to apply for that, and I'll just tell you kind of what it means. And so as was mentioned, we do have environmental science AP courses. Not everybody's required to take AP, and I'll tell you, graduation requirements and A through G requirements, and A through G are the requirements that you need to go to college. They really drive the curriculum. And so what we are working on is trying to have units and have teachers develop units that are environmentally based and put them into other required courses, and that's a good way. If we could have our own required course on environmental education, I think that would be another way. But what I like about the Green Ribbon program is that it's a rubric. And so we apply for that at different levels. So the top level is actually green. It's not gold, it's green. But bronze, silver, and gold. So we put our first application last year, and it was a silver, and then it also identifies things if you want to improve, and that's basically what we're identifying. What are those things? it's a good way to encourage you. And of course, we would like to get to the green level. But I think really it's a journey, right? So you're never there, but we're just looking to improve in this area. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming out today. I know it's a Saturday morning, so it's a lot. It means a lot to have this many youth and adults taking the time out of their day to come for such an important issue. I want to take this opportunity to really talk directly to the new youth who are in the room who don't have experience with what we do at SVYCA, and the adult advocates in the room too who are new, and really explain sort of our innovative approach at SVYCA and how we've been really effective over the last 4 years and how our model is effective. This is a world that's currently and will be and will continue to be shaped by the effects of climate change. And this is true across all countries, all industry, all disciplines, right? So this is something we have to be thinking about mindfully. We want our youth, as you can see in the room and as you can see in our leadership team, we want our youth to be thinking about this problem as early as possible, right? They should be exposed as early as they can. Start thinking about all the industries and career paths that they could take to potentially be a part of this, and how they can get involved in their life as empowered leaders. And we want them, in the work that we do really at SVYC, we want them to have the confidence that they can be a part of the solution, and that the solution is actually there. But really, it's a matter of what? It's a matter of scaling, and it's a matter of advocacy, right? This is what we really try to teach them. We want them to have the confidence to be able to move mountains, because this is what we all know. They don't really have a choice. We don't really have a choice, right? We have to move mountains. So it's something that we strive for here at SVYCA. And how do we do that? We do that through 3 prongs, right? Our MCs alluded to the idea earlier. We empower and educate our youth. And what does that mean, right? We recruit motivated youth at summits such as today. We're really excited to meet a lot of the new youth here who have not been a part of SVYCA before. What we do is we assign them typically to our action teams, right? Typically, if they're city-based, if they're regionally based, if they're initiative-based, based around a policy issue area such as transit, nature-based solutions, etc. We get them assigned to that, and they learn through team advisors that we recruit as an organization. These team advisors empower them, they teach them. The second prong, we are strategic, right? We try to build partnerships with key stakeholders at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, to try and ensure that the youth perspective is included when we're talking about climate policy measures locally, right, and regionally. Last but certainly not least, I alluded to the idea earlier, green career pathways exposure, right? This is a vital part of the work that we do and the work that we're really even trying to push in our school districts and other organizations locally, but we think that we kind of have this market cornered at the moment. But trying to expose our youth as much as possible to all the industries that are going to be impacted by climate change. And we want to provide them with all the resources necessary, building partnerships as an organization so our youth get exposed and understand that there are pathways available to them, even in the traditional Silicon Valley job sectors, right? You don't have to, if you want to be a software engineer, you don't have to go work for Meta. You could go work for a climate tech startup, right? Like that's going to be the future, and this is something that a lot of our youth should think about. Thank you all for your time. We want to start with our keynote panel. If our keynote panelists can come up. But let's have a great summit, let's have a great day, let's have a great day of learning. Appreciate it.
Keynote panel today, it's going to be a deep dive into zero greenhouse gas emission California, what that means from the transportation sector to the electrification sector to industry and beyond. So here we have 3 amazing panelists for us today. First we have Ken Branson. He's a senior policy advisor for climate, energy, and environmental issues for California State Senator Josh Becker. We also have Vedal Banerjee, the director of communications for California Environmental Voters. And finally, we have the Honorable Rod Durdon Sr. He was a former Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors member, emeritus executive director at the Mineta Transportation Institute, and a very prominent public transit advocate. So please join me in welcoming these 3 amazing panelists. So yeah, let's just get started. So to begin, California is blessed to have a plethora of natural resources that can be leveraged for carbon-free energy, from solar photovoltaic power on rooftops to solar thermal power in the Mojave Desert to giant wind farms along our coast. I want all of you to share your vision of California's zero carbon electricity grid. What do you think that looks like in terms of the resources that are necessary to achieve that?
We need a lot of every kind of clean energy that we can get our hands on. And that's going to mean a huge amount of solar, a huge amount of wind. We're going to need wind from places like Wyoming and New Mexico that we can import into the state. We're going to need offshore wind. We have plenty of targets and plenty of people interested in investing in all of those things. Our biggest problem right now is that we can't build the transmission and we can't get that stuff interconnected. So our problem is not in having more ambition. Our problem is in getting the bureaucracy, the sort of green tape, we refer to it, out of the way, and getting all of this stuff built as fast as we need it to get built.
As Ken was saying, we're working on a little bit on everything, and it's really like speed and scale of what we're looking at right now. California is now the 4th largest economy. We've surpassed Germany. So every policy change and work that we do in California has global national impact and global impact. So, for example, gas-powered cars, there's now a mandate that by 2035, it's going to be phased out. So it's all going to be EVs. So now the EU is looking at it. It's going to be adopted by several states. So the impact that California has is really global. And we will go into all the details in a little bit, but some of the work that we're working on right now is corporate accountability. There are 100 energy companies that are responsible for 71% of the global emissions. There cannot be any real change unless we get transparency from what that entire corporate footprint is. That's scope 1, 2, and 3. So we are heavily involved in the corporate accountability work and almost everything else.
It goes slowly, so begin quickly because we don't have much time. Did you all hear the Secretary General of the United Nations quote from 4 days ago in Toronto? He indicated that we were behind the schedule for converting away from carbon-based fuel, and that we were not going to make it unless we changed our course very, very quickly. That's you. That's your future. So, if you're going to invest in anything with your lives, this is what you need to invest in if you think about your children. And, I'm a great believer from 80 years of watching in demand forcing. If we need the energy, it will be provided. If we create the demand for it, it will be provided. Because of capitalism, you make money on selling things. So we've got to create demand as the primary focus.
I'd like to move on to talking about kind of the role California plays as a state in this kind of global movement towards more sustainable systems, and kind of the relation between like state, national, international policy when it comes to these economic models and strategies. So yeah, we want to start with Lena, and if you have a good answer to any questions, feel free to give it to any other panels.
Sure. So I think I'll probably pass the majority off to the others on the panel here, but I'll say that the California really is a model for action in so many ways, and again with land use and conservation work, just in this region alone, it really is a model for state action. And recently there was an executive order, recently a couple years ago now, for 30 by 30, which was is to conserve 30% of the state's most important lands and coastal waters by 2030. And a lot of that ties back to the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis.
For example, San Francisco Environment Department has a very boots on the ground approach to policy, which is going out there and talking to stakeholders and really, understanding the costs and the benefits to particular policy solutions. And I think, having the ability to be somewhat flexible and, add more requirements on top of existing state code lets us, test out new policies and programs at a smaller scale that could be adopted statewide. And beyond that, it also like producing case studies and trying these new policies and developing recommendations, have really shown to also like be a leader nationwide and in the world, and give people some different ideas of what policies might work at what scale.
California became a leader in conservation, passed laws like SVYCA, the California Environmental Quality Act, established the Mid-Peninsula Open Parks District, and everything has evolved since then. We have a proud history there. California is moving behind now in some respects on the environment. Now, I think the biggest asset that California has now with respect to protecting the environment is Silicon Valley, and is the technologies of the digital age into an information-based economy. We're shifting out of an economy that depends on extraction of resources that are used once thrown away, to an economy that's based on information and knowledge and interaction and relationship, and where collaboration is much more vital to wealth creation than competition is. So moving more fully into a digital culture where we use digital to move past the industrial phase, that's probably the biggest thing California can do.
Switching topics to equitability and accessibility, how can we make sure that renewable energy is equitable?
These are the things we're hearing over and over, and I think the keynote panel was talking about, how do you keep things affordable? One thing that the city of Santa Clara did, or Silicon Valley Power, we made sure that all our residents were served by 100% renewable energy, I think starting in 2018, and it's just the residents. We have a lot of aggressive policies for affordability. Right now, just so you know, our residents pay 50% less than what you pay in the PG&E territory. And that's just because we've been here such a long time and we've invested in a very diverse portfolio of resources.
That I take away, and I think is really something that we're honing in on here at SVCE, is building deep relationships with the community and creating processes that help hold us accountable for what we're doing and help to push and move the needle on building electrification or transportation electrification. I think, if anything, like I've learned over my career, it's like really important to make sure that folks that are affected by issues are, involved in creating the solutions.
We have a program that provides grants to nonprofit organizations to help get the word out about energy bill discounts, about our own programs that we have for those who qualify based on their income, such as we have a program and rebate for used electric vehicles, or we have a program that provides free home repairs and appliances for those who qualify in their income. And so I think ultimately I really like what Eric said about centering those who are most impacted and who are closest to the solutions of climate change in our decision making, and that's something that we're also really working towards.
To build on what my colleagues have said here is that one of the exciting things about being part of a community choice aggregator is you get an opportunity to impact things equitably across the territory that you're supporting or serving. And I think that's why a lot of CCAs were started. So the inequities that exist right now have been systemic and historically long-standing, over 100 years long in California. Specifically, and so you have an opportunity to say at least what we can do is determine for the communities that we're serving that everyone has access to cleaner energy at a lower cost than what they pay right now, and then determining what policies they put in place to actually provide renewable energy to more and more members of the community.
As we shift public transit to bigger projects, such as high-speed rails and interconnected transportation systems throughout the state, how can we ensure that these efforts don't result in environmental gentrification and mass displacement, especially from disenfranchised minority communities?
So I think this is a great question, and one that was I felt very relevant to me, even though you didn't know my previous experience back in Austin, because we had passed a property tax measure there for a $10.1 billion investment over the course of 40 or 50 years, but starting with a light rail system along with bus rapid transit and a second commuter rail line. And one of the biggest fears of all of that was that we were making an investment which me as a transit professional deeply believed was a huge investment in sustainability and in equity and in a whole host of other good things. But one of the biggest fears of people who were detractors, and even among some people who were supporters, was, is this investment in equity and, frankly, affordability, because transit is a far more affordable way to get people around than driving a car, especially if people are still driving gas cars. There was a huge concern that if we make this investment in these corridors, many of which were areas of persistent poverty, you had communities of color in these areas, there was a huge fear that it was going to drive real estate prices through the roof.
If you want to fix the equity problem, whether you build a bike lane, you increase the property's value near your house. If you build transit of any kind, you're increasing the value. We simply need to build more and denser housing around transit. We'll all be better off. People who work here need to be able to afford to live here, whether they are working in our restaurants, or working in our school districts, or working in tech. But if, as our Congressman Rokana has said, if we get to the point where the only people who can afford to live here because we built so little housing are those two tech income families, we won't have much of a society at some point.
You know, I think a lot of people complain a lot about the current transit system in the Bay Area and in California and just kind of think, oh, you know, it's over, we can't do anything, we should just give up. But I really don't think that. I think that if we actually try and we actually invest in transit, that we'll have a great system someday.
So first of all, we know that the climate sector covers a wide range of disciplines. Can you each provide an overview of your specific discipline and the various career paths that are available in your field?
Okay, I will take that first. So ITRON is a very broad solution offering company. So we work with utilities and cities around helping them be more resourceful. So sustainability is one of the key themes of our culture of the company, as well as what our customers are doing. So the focus is around really measuring the use of those precious commodities, helping to be the companies, the utilities, and the cities to be more efficient with those resources, and then also helping their customers, whether it be you and I living at home or an industrial customer who's using a lot more energy, for example. So we have, again, a broad range of solutions that we offer there. In my particular area, I'm focused around smart cities, where we look at how do we use technology to enable the cities to become more efficient. Again, helping their operations become more efficient, but also allowing them to be more resourceful. And so there's a number of different use cases there that we offer. So all of this is sort of based on a common platform that we want to bring to the customers. But it allows us to be quite varied in our applications.
And I am representing Elemental Accelerator, which is a nonprofit investor, and we are focused on scaling climate technologies with deep community impact. A couple ways we do that. Through our portfolio team, we have a commercialization program, which is built up. We have over 100 portfolio companies now. We also have a policy lab to really think about what levers at the policy level, at the government level, we can utilize to support our companies as their projects are deployed across the world. And also we have a very core team, which I'm a part of, called Equity and Access. And again, thinking really about how the impacts of climate tech investment, what that impact looks like at the community level. So on the E&A team, we think about equity out and equity in. Equity out, how can organizations partner and work closer with community members when their projects, technologies, services are being deployed. We also think about equity in, how can these different organizations do better as far as their hiring processes, their mental models related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in my role specifically for career pathways, how can we bring more people into the climate sector? So through my role, which I'm sure we'll talk about through different questions, I can kind of overview a lot of the different types of roles that you can have in the climate sector. So I'll just pause there.
Hey folks, my name is Evan. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at ClimateBase. And at ClimateBase, we're focused on helping people, like all of you in this room perhaps, align your career, align your working hours and your income with the work that we need to do to address climate change. So we have as a platform, you can think of us as like, LinkedIn for climate is maybe the easiest tagline. So we have a very sort of high-level bird's-eye view of the entire sort of job landscape. I can first speak to our own team, because I think that can give a kind of provides a good example of the diversity of roles that are in demand across this very broad space that we call climate work. So on our team, we have writers, we have software engineers, we have program managers, we have product managers, we have, I already said engineering, but front-end and back-end engineering. We're about to start working with an AI engineer as well. We work with a marketing person that we just brought onto the team. So just even on our own team, you see the diversity of roles and skill sets that are needed in this area of work. And when we look at the platform and what our data as a platform at ClimateBase shows, imagine a pie chart. I wish I had a visual of our data, but imagine a pie chart and think of like every role you can think of, and they're all represented in that giant pie chart. In fact, Bloomberg just did a story, ran an article on our data from ClimateBase a couple weeks ago, and I'll just share the top 5 most in-demand roles in climate. Keep in mind there are over 60 different individual role types that we track across the platform, and they're all well represented. But just in the top 5 alone, you see software engineering coming in at number 1, but almost practically tied with sales and business development. So you see non-technical and technical skills right there, basically tied for number 1, followed by operations, which is, for those of you who don't know, operations is kind of like a catch-all phrase that you can put a lot of different sort of non-technical roles underneath. Then marketing, communications, and then electrical engineering. So that's just the top 5, and you see that kind of diversity all represented in that. So, for starters, to kick off this panel, I guess I'll just say all of you here have a role to play when it comes to working on climate.
I want to take everybody. It was a Saturday. It was a long day. We appreciate you taking your time coming out here. All of our key stakeholders that we work with, the elected officials, staff members, thank you so much for coming out and supporting the youth. But I really want to end on one message that I think that really encapsulates what we're trying to do here at SVYCA. To the youth, and especially the new youth here today who have not been affiliated with us before, or not worked with us before, or volunteered with us before. The goal, we really, really hope that after today, you should not feel hopeless, right? That there is a community, even locally, people you may know, people at your high school that are working on these issues, who are thinking about things thoughtfully, who are trying to galvanize and organize at the local level, at the regional level, at the state level. Any politician in here will tell you first, all politics is local, right? That's something that sometimes in high school you don't always buy into. You watch the news and you watch federal, but you could start local and make a big change locally. So I want to encourage you all to not feel hopeless. We have a community here who is devoted to trying to work towards better solutions in Santa Clara County and San Mateo County, and hopefully expanding after that. And we want you to take action, right? Use this QR code, sign up for an action team if you're not already on one. Join one that you're not on, or join the one in your hometown.